On today's episode of Out of the Groove, the chase has officially begun. Martin Truex Jr. wins race 1 and will probably be moving on. Jimmie Johnson had the win in sights and then blew it. And Kevin Harvick made an unnecessary gamble. We'll talk about all of that. Cue the title. Hey everybody, I am Eric and welcome once again to Out of the Groove. I said once again, some of you, this might be your first episode, and in that case, welcome. But for those of you that are returning, you know what to expect. Yes! We'll start the show today talking about the winner, Martin Truex Jr. Toyota continues their role, Martin Truex Jr. winning 2 of the last 3 races, as he got the win at Chicagoland to move himself forward into the next round of the chase. But hold on a second, it wasn't without some controversy. As has plagued many race winners this season, Martin Truex Jr. failed post-race LIS inspection. And NASCAR pointed out earlier this week that they would be upping the penalties for post-race infractions during the chase. But a statement after the race from NASCAR yesterday said that they did not expect the severe penalties to affect Martin Truex Jr. because his infraction was apparently just over the line, like the minimum as it could possibly be. Now people are bouncing off the walls left and right with different viewpoints, different arguments. Martin Truex Jr. will still probably get a fine. Cole Pern will more than likely get either put on probation or possibly even suspended, who knows. But it's opened up a lot of talk for a discussion. Truex had one of the better cars most of the race. He wasn't always the best car, but he took advantage of a late race restart to ultimately steal the win away from Chase Elliott, who probably had the best car most of the afternoon. Some people believe that NASCAR should drop the hammer on Truex and not let his win count as automatic advancement, which would probably be the most serious penalty Truex would face at this point. Other people say no, stay consistent with what you've done the rest of the year and just fine them and dock them points or however that works. You know, it's not as serious of a penalty, but at least be consistent. And as NASCAR stated, their infraction was literally the bare minimum. And we've seen so many post-race LIS failures, post-qualifying, pre-qualifying, pre-race. We've seen so many LIS failures this season. I don't remember ever seeing this any other season. I'm not a technical mastermind, so I don't really know what really is different about the 2016 cars compared to the past and why that would be causing these changes, or if it's just the actual process by which they look for LIS infractions. That could be just more strict than before. And again, like I said, I know very little about the technical side of NASCAR, especially when it comes to things like this. I don't really know what the right penalty should be. I'm going to go ahead and go with what NASCAR said, and since apparently their measurements were literally just over the line, and several other guys, Jimmie Johnson also got hit with this same penalty this last race, so he'll probably face some consequences. Since apparently they're acting like it's not a big deal at all, I'm gonna go ahead and believe them. I don't believe that NASCAR is trying to help Martin Truex Jr. If it was Dale Earnhardt Jr., you know, maybe a different story. You could your conspiracy theories could jump through the roof. But I don't believe NASCAR is trying to go out of their way to help Truex. I think they literally are looking at it as this is a tiny little problem that could have happened to anyone. Clearly happened to several people in the race. I think even Kyle Busch at least failed it once. He might have passed it the second time through. So I don't think it's a big issue. I'm going to trust NASCAR in this case and say just give them the base little penalty you've been giving people all season. Don't take the win's worth away. I think that just... It's going to create too much confusion in the sport when each week now everyone's going to be worried. Your favorite driver might win the race, but you're still going to be worried for 2 or 3 days afterwards. Did they pass all the inspections? And I don't want that drama to be added into each race weekend unless it's a serious penalty or a serious infraction. Just dock them some points, fine them some money, but don't take the win away. I think that just ruins the magical moment that was Sunday afternoon. At least for Truex fans. Chase Elliott fans were probably gritting their teeth bitterly. Now, one of the other major stories from Sunday's race had to do with Chase Elliott's teammate, Jimmie Johnson. Now, if you watched last week's episode, I didn't have Jimmie Johnson making it past maybe the round of 12, just because that team had been struggling in recent months. And I know I wasn't alone. A lot of people probably had the same doubts. But Jimmie and Chad set out to prove everyone wrong on Sunday. Jimmie Johnson had one of the best cars pretty much all day long, led a lot of laps, especially in the first half of the race, ran top 5 the whole way, and was set to really make a statement here in the first race of the chase. But then during green flag pit stops with about 30 laps to go, Jimmie Johnson committed the ultimate sin of speeding on pit road. That ultimately put him a lap down, and with so many laps to go in the race and only one other restart I believe that they had, Jimmie really was not ever able to get up to where he had been running before. Now, Jimmie Johnson ultimately still finished 12th, which could have been a lot worse given the situation he was in, but that 48 team really had the chance to make a major statement to the rest of the chase field. If Jimmie had gone out and won that race or even finished top 3 and with as many laps as he led, that would have woken up a lot of people to not only how fast Jimmie Johnson is, but how fast these Hendrick cars seem to suddenly be now that the chase has started. Jimmie and Chase Elliott combined to lead way more laps than anybody else did, and the two of them definitely had probably the best cars throughout the race. But that penalty ultimately took away the bonus points Jimmie Johnson had coming into the chase. Jimmie came into the chase with 2 wins, so he had 6 bonus points. That 12th place finish has basically bumped him back down as if he never got those wins, which is very unfortunate. Obviously, with New Hampshire and especially Dover coming up in this round, chances of Jimmie Johnson still moving on past the round of 16 are very likely. I don't think anyone would question that. But I think it'll continue to raise some concerns about whether that team, in terms of execution at least, is really even capable of getting to the Final Four, even the top 8, you know? It'll be interesting to see how they do at these next 2 tracks since they're both only about a mile long. Hendrick's always been good at the 1.5 miles, so they've probably been better than most at those tracks, except for Martin Truex Jr. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle the shorter racetracks, which Joe Gibbs Racing has dominated this year. Another major storyline that NBCSN talked about way too much during the race yesterday was Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick had to start the race in the rear due to an unapproved adjustment pre-race, and he quickly, like easy mode video game style, drove his way through the field up into the top 10 in like 20 laps. It was ridiculous. It was like he had a bullet bill and everyone else was shrunk by a lightning bolt, if you play Mario Kart. But unfortunately, the fun stopped there for Harvick fans. Early in the race, during a round of green flag pit stops, Kevin Harvick came onto pit road. As he was pulling into his pit box, the caution flag came out for a loose tire flying across the racetrack. Harvick's team noticed this, saw where the leader was, and knew that they had to beat the leader to the start-finish line in order to stay on the lead lap. So Harvick took things into his own control and tried to wheel out of his pit stop after only 2 tires had been completed in hopes of beating the then leader Martin Truex to the start-finish line. He was about this short, and as a result, he was trapped a lap down when the caution came out. But to make matters worse, since he'd only taken 2 tires, they still needed to come in and pit to get those left side tires on. So at that point, he wasn't even capable of taking the wave around. That incident trapped Harvick a lap down, and he basically, the cautions just never fell his way. He stayed a lap down, I think, through the entire race, and finished 20th. And as of now, Kevin Harvick is currently 14th on the chase grid, and would be out if the round were to end today. Now, clearly, with 2 races still to go, chances are Kevin Harvick will drive his way back into the top 12, but now he's got some added pressure. Kevin Harvick, if y'all remember, was my pick to win the championship, and I think a lot of people have him making it at least to the Final Four, so this could be a major roadblock for that team. If they run into trouble at either Dover or New Hampshire and don't get a win, I think their chase hoops could be dashed pretty early on, and so would many of our chase grids. And it really was just an unfortunate circumstance because Harvick was trying to make an aggressive move to stay on the lead lap and not be forced to take the wave around, but ultimately, the way I see it is he should have just finished his pit stop. He would have had to take the wave around, yes, but he would at least been on the lead lap. It was early in the race. I think it was too early for him to be making such an aggressive and possibly cost-worthy move like he did. Now, I don't know who made the call to go, 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 whether it was his crew chief saying, hey, go, 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 get out there, or if it was Harvick himself saying, hey, I gotta get out of here. It probably came from the crew chief or the spotter, but whoever it came from, I don't know why he did that. There were several other drivers on pit road at the same time in the same situation as Harvick. Instead of doing what he did, they just completed their service, took 4 tires, came out, yes, a lap down, but then they just easily took the wave around. They already had their tires on their car, so they were able to, have to race through traffic, obviously, which was annoying, but at least they were on the lead lap. Kevin Harvick, by taking that risk and ultimately not finishing his pit stop, had to come back in, could not take the wave around, so he ended up being a lap down. And really it just came down to the cautions. He never could catch a good caution. The first 200 laps of the race barely saw any cautions, so it wasn't really, wasn't really easy. It didn't help either that it seemed like the handling on Kevin Harvick's car took a major downward turn, especially after that first run of the race where he looked invincible. That all being said, I still think Kevin Harvick is clearly a favorite for these next 2 weeks at New Hampshire and Dover, but he's going to definitely have to play it a lot more safer, be a lot more consistent, and stay out of any sorts of potential trouble if he wants to move on past the round of 16, and he needs to. If he doesn't, that is a failure. Just a quick hit on a lot of the other chasers. Joey Logano, Chase Elliott finished 2nd and 3rd. So Chase Elliott still had a very good finish, 3rd place. That definitely bodes well for that rookie team, and moving on to the round of 12, which was good for them. I know a lot of people I've seen have him in their Final Four. I think that's a little overstepping, but still, 3rd place, good finish, had the best car most likely throughout most of the day. Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, both had top 10s. Kyle Busch, Matt Kenseth, also chase drivers. I believe 7 of the top 10 were chase drivers, so all those guys continue to boost themselves up in points. Many of them had bonus points to help with that, so they're currently feeling pretty comfortable, but not too comfortable right now, if you know what I mean. Tony Stewart finished 16th, Chris Buescher finished 28th. Definitely not the day Chris Buescher was going for. I know I keep railing on Chris Buescher for not really deserving to be in the chase, and he doesn't. But I mean, as much as I like Chris Buescher, it's just that team, a 28th place finish, just proves that they're not chase worthy, and it's definitely not they were looking for. Tony Stewart finishing 16th. not terrible. He's still, I believe he's 12th on the chase grid right now. He's only like a couple points to the good. So it'll be interesting to see if he can get through New Hampshire and Dover and try to get there. Those bonus points for his win at Sonoma earlier this year really helping him out right now. They might ultimately be the difference on whether or not he makes it into the round of 12. It'll be interesting to see. I know he's decent at Dover. Maybe that'll be a big boost for him. Who knows? A lot of other guys had decent days. The main guys I talked about there are the ones that had the most significant trouble. Kyle Larson had a big day. He started way in the back, had to drive all the way up to the front. Seemed to have a good car, but then he had a loose wheel late in the race. Ultimately, Pitt finished 18th, I believe. I believe he finished 18th. Tough day for the 42 team. I hope that they can bounce back from that and get back in that top 12 and be championship competitors, because I think a lot of people expect that 42 team to be in at least the final 8, if you ask me. And that is it for today's episode. I'll see you guys again on Friday. I'll be previewing the New Hampshire race. I'll be talking about whatever penalties come out of Jimmie Johnson or Truex, however that works out. I'll try to make next week's episode a little bit funnier. This week's episode was a lot more just stating facts, kind of basic like that. But you know, I got to be educational here. I can't lie to you people. I can't tell you that Jimmie Johnson won the race if he didn't. As much as you guys may wish that were the truth, I can't do that. But that's all I have. Follow me on Twitter at Dex Racing. I post plenty of stuff on there. The NASCAR Parody that I know I talked about last week, I was going to do this week. That will probably not happen this week. It'll probably happen next week because I have a lot of other projects, school projects, and also I actually have a professional project I'm working on as well. I'm helping somebody out with. I'm very busy this week, so NASCAR Parody will probably be next week. I've written it, I just need to build it. I have no room, so I got to build it in a very temporary location, so I got to find the day that I'm able to film it, and I will do that. So look forward to that. I'll be doing some NASCAR Heat Evolution gameplays before too long. I know everyone's doing that, all the rage. That game's got, you know, people playing it all over, people with different opinions about that. I'll talk about that game as well. That's what's coming up fairly soon. Goodness, I'm a busy person these days. Alright, that's all for me. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see y'all on Friday.